Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our online class. This is your third period and the subject is social science. Students, today through this recorded mode class, I am going to complete chapter 3, that is money and credit, from economics book of class 10th. So today video will be the concluding part of this chapter. I repeat once again, today through this video I am going to complete the chapter 3, that is money and credit, from economics book of class 10th, and today's video will be the concluding video of this chapter. Students, today we are going to cover the following topics. Okay, the following topics are being covered. The first topic is loans from cooperatives. Loans from cooperatives. Second topic is formal sector credit. Okay, in India. How the formal sector credit structure in India. Next one about RBI, some information about RBI. Next one, informal credit structure in India. Next one, self-help groups and their working. At last, that is Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. So these topics we are going to cover so that the chapter will be completed. I appeal all my students to watch this video carefully and listen to my lecture with a lot of attentiveness. Fine? Now, loans from cooperatives, that is the first topic, today's topic. So students, besides banks, apart from banks, all type of banks, the major source of cheap credit in rural areas are from cooperative societies. That means other than banks, beside banks or apart from banks, the major source of cheap credit which is provided in the rural areas is from cooperative societies. There are several types of cooperative societies are there, such as here farmers cooperative societies or farmers cooperatives, industrial workers cooperatives, weavers cooperatives, coir goods cooperatives, which is in Kerala. Similarly, milk cooperatives and so on. So there are so many types of cooperatives are there, and these cooperatives are working to provide cheap credit for the people of rural areas. Now, how these cooperatives work? Students, few members will form one cooperative. Few members will come together and form a cooperative, and the members of the cooperative, the members who joined as the members of cooperative or the people who joined as the members of cooperative, these members they pool their resources, I mean money, either money or any other thing. They pool their resources for providing cooperation in certain areas. The members of the members of the cooperative society, they will pool the resources, I mean money, whatever money they are having. It is not necessary that all the members should pool equal amount of money or equal amount of resources. So whatever amount they are having, that they will pool in order to provide cooperation in certain areas. Example of such cooperative I am giving here, Krishak cooperative, one of the cooperative, Krishak cooperative, which is there in Sonpur village, Krishak cooperative. So in this cooperative, nearly 2300 are the members. Nearly 2300 are the members and all are farmers. The Krishak Cooperative Society in a village called Sonpur, or very near to Sonpur village, one society is there, and in that 2300 farmers are the members. Now it accepts deposits from its members. That cooperative society will accept some small deposits from its members, and with these deposits as collateral, or with these deposits as collateral, I mean whatever deposits it accepted from the farmers, from its members, the total amount, the total deposits, okay, in the they will the total deposits as collateral, making as collateral, using as collateral, the cooperative has obtained a large loan from the bank. I mean whatever resources they pooled, the total amount, using it as collateral, and this collateral they are using in order to pledge a larger amount of loan from the bank. After taking loans, okay, those funds, those loans, that amount of loan, that money which is obtained from the bank, those funds are used to provide loans to its members. Same amount which they took from the bank as loan, that funds again they distribute in the form of loans to all the farmers to purchase their needs, agricultural needs or other needs. Once these loans are repaid, suppose if all the members have taken loan from the cooperative society, once these loans are repaid to the cooperative society, then again another round of loans they will get. So on repayment of loans only, they are eligible to take another loan, or they get another round of loans. Fine. The rate of interest in these cooperative societies will be less. The rate of interest charged by these cooperative societies will be less. This Krishak Cooperative Society, which is there near Sonpur village, provides loans for the purchase of agricultural implements, loans for construction of their houses, okay, agricultural trade, fishery loans, loans for construction of houses as I told you, and various other expenses. They'll get the loans. So in India also several these cooperative societies are there. In Kerala, Coir Goods Society, Coir Goods Cooperative Society is there. In Maharashtra also, Sugar Cooperative Societies are there. In Gujarat, Amul Milk Dairy Cooperative Society is there. Like that. So they always work for welfare. The rate of interest charge will be less. Okay. In this way, many farmers, the members of this cooperative society, are getting benefit. Okay. Now, moving to our next topic, that is formal sector of credit in India. Formal sector of credit in India. Just a minute. So coming back, students, our next topic is formal sector credit in India. Formal sector credit in India. Students, the credit structure in India is divided into two types. The credit structure in India is divided into two types. One is formal sector credit structure and second is informal sector credit structure. You have seen that people are obtaining loans from various sources. People are obtaining loans. People are obtaining loans from various sources as per their convenience. They are obtaining loans from various sources as per their convenience. Now, all the sources through which loans are taken by the people are grouped into two categories. Namely, the first one is formal sources of loans and second is informal sources of loans, or I can say formal sector of loans and informal sector of loans. Now, first one, formal sector of loans. This formal sector of loans means all types of banks and even cooperatives, all types of banks and all types of cooperatives will come under the formal sector of loans. So formal, a person can take loans from cooperative societies, cooperative banks or cooperative societies, and also any type of bank. Suppose if a person is taking loans from banks or cooperative societies or cooperatives, then that is called formal sector loans. Whereas informal sector loans means whenever people are taking loans from money lenders, mahajans, landlords, friends, relatives. So if you take loan from these people, money lenders, landlords, mahajans, relatives, friends, etc., then it will come under informal sector of loans. There's a lot of difference between formal sector of loans and informal sector of loans. The difference we'll study further. Now, even if a person is taking loans from traders, taking loans from traders or any employer, suppose if a person is taking loan from any trader, businessman, or any employer, or a money lender, or a landlord, from any friend or relatives, all will come under informal sources of credit. And both types of credit availability is there in our country, India. Okay. Now, formal sources of credit always controlled by, checked by, supervised by Reserve Bank of India, RBI. So RBI, Reserve Bank of India, always supervises, checks, it check and supervise the formal source of credit. That means it informs all the banks, Reserve Bank informs all the banks that out of total amounts or out of total deposits what they received from the public in the form of various kinds of deposits, either saving deposit or fixed deposit or any other type of deposits. So whatever amount of deposits they received from the public, out of total deposits, how much amount they have to keep in their banks and how much amount they should lend in the form of loans to various sectors, that this will be decided by RBI. Usually 20%, just imagine, out of 100%, 20% of the deposits they will keep in banks for the daily transactions, and remaining 80% of their total deposits they will lend in the form of loans to various sectors for various needy people who want to start any productive work. Okay, banks will also, this Reserve Bank also will supervise that which type of loans or what are the types of loans that banks are giving to the people, to the needy people, whom they are giving, what types loans, what type of loans they are giving, how much interest rate they are being charging while giving loans. Everything will be supervised by, checked by RBI. All the banks, they have to submit their monthly report or quarterly report or half-yearly report or yearly reports to the RBI, that how much deposits their bank received, how much deposits they kept in their banks for daily transactions, how much amount of deposits they gave in the form of loans, what are all the types of loans they gave, and what rate of interest they are charging while giving the loans. This will be checked by RBI. Whereas the informal sector loans, when loans are taken by relatives, friends, traders, money lenders, landlords, etc. So this informal sector of loans are not being supervised by anyone. There's no one to supervise these loans. That's why in the informal sector, people are charging more rate of interest. High rate of interest they are charging. And their method of recovery is also very harsh. Their method of recovery is very harsh. They are charging very high rate of interest. Hence, the borrower, the person who is taking loans from informal sector, he has to pay very high rate of interest for the loan he has taken from any source. Sometimes the borrower is paying more interest rate than the principal amount. And sometimes the borrower also goes into debt trap. Sometimes the borrowers of the loans from informal sectors are going into debt trap, from which the recovery is very difficult, because in informal sector high rate of interest are being charged, and their mode of collection or the method of recovery is very harsh. Okay, now I am showing you one screenshot, just you see that one. Sources of credit as per, I repeat, sources of credit per rupees 1000 of rural households in India in 2012. This is here. I'll show you. So one in page number, that is 48. In page number 48, it is shown, one pie chart is given. One pie chart you can see there. That graph 1 in the form of pie chart is given. Source of credit per rupees 1000 of rural households in India in 2012. Here if you see, the major part of major source of revenue, a major source of loans are from money lenders. From money lenders, how much percent of people are taking loans? 33%. And the second one is, that is cooperative societies or cooperative banks, that is 25%, second place. Third place, commercial banks, again 25%. Now then comes here relatives and friends, 8%. Then comes other institutional agencies, that is 5%. And other non-institutional agencies 2%. Government 1%. Landlords 1%, like that, and so on. So that shows that majority people in India, especially in rural areas, rural households, the people who are living in rural areas, their main source of loans is what? Money lenders and cooperative societies or banks. Okay, now I told you, compared from formal lenders of loans, the informal lenders will charge more rate of interest. When compared with banks, when compared with the commercial banks or cooperative banks, the informal sources of credit such as relatives, friends, landlords, traders, business people, etc., they charge high rate of interest, and which leads to what? Debt trap to the borrower. And moreover, the informal sector, in informal sector, the lender will adopt all methods to recover the loans. Sometimes they will harass the borrower to sell their land, their house, their properties to repay the loan. And sometimes the borrower is paying more interest than the principal amount which has taken loan from the money lenders or any traders or business people. So that's why what I want to say, there's an urgent need. There's an urgent need what? To establish more and more banks, more and more cooperative societies in the rural areas. There is an urgent need to establish more and more banks, more and more cooperative societies, cooperative banks in the rural areas, so that cheap and affordable credit, can be given to the rural people. Moreover, when cheap and affordable credit is given to the people, then it plays a crucial role in the country's development. One bold letters sentence is given in page number 49, the last paragraph. Cheap and affordable credit. Cheap and affordable credit is crucial for the country's development. So when we can provide cheap and affordable credit, whenever we establishes more and more banks, more and more cooperative societies, cooperative banks in the country, especially in the rural areas, then only we can provide cheap and affordable credit to all the people, which plays a crucial role in the country's economic development. Now, formal and informal credit, who gets what? Let us see. Here page number 49, you see one graph 2 is given, one image is given. See, graph 2 shows the importance of formal and informal sources of credit for people living in urban areas. This graph 2 in page number 49, graph 2 in page number 49 shows what? The importance of formal and informal source of credit. The importance of formal and informal source of credit for people living in urban areas. If you see here, the graph, in the graph, the people are divided into 4 groups. The people are divided into 4 groups, from poor to rich. From poor to rich. Now, as shown in the figure, you can see 85% of loans taken by poor households in urban areas from informal sector. I mean, out of 100% of poor who are living in urban areas, out of 100% of poor people who are living in urban areas, 85% of poor people who are living in urban areas, they are taking loans from informal sectors only, not formal sectors. Similarly, the 10% of their loans, similarly, the rich people compared to rich people, rich households, they are taking very less loans from informal sector. 85% of urban poor people are taking loans from informal sectors. Remaining 15% are taking from formal sources. Whereas the rich people who are there in urban areas, they are taking only 10% of loans from informal sector. Only 10% of loans are taken by rich people from informal sources. Remaining 90% of loans, the rich people are taking from formal sectors. Okay, a similar pattern is also found in rural areas. Okay, the rich households are availing cheap credit from formal sources. In rural, this is urban area I told you now. Okay, now coming to rural areas, in rural areas, the rich people are taking loan. The rich people are taking more loans from formal sectors, whereas poor people they are taking more loans from informal sectors. I mean, the rich people in rural areas are taking loans from banks and cooperative societies, whereas poor people are taking loans from what? Relatives, money lenders, friends, business people, traders, landlords, etc. Those who are taking the loans from informal sectors, they are supposed to pay high rate of interest because in informal sector the rate of interest charge is very high and there is no control by RBI. Now, this figure, this graph 2 in page 49, what does all this suggest? First, the formal sector still meets only about half of the total credit needs of the rural people. I mean, whatever number of banks, whatever number of cooperatives which are there in rural areas, they are able to provide only 50% of loans to the rural people. Remaining 50% of people living in rural areas are taking loans from informal sectors, and the remaining are taken from informal sectors. That means 50% of rural people are facing lot of trouble from the informal sector lenders for charging high rate of interest. Mode of collection is very difficult, recovery is very difficult, etc. So what we have to do? Very simple. We have to establish more and more banks and more cooperative societies in rural areas so that they can provide cheap and affordable loan to all the rural people for their needs or for their productive works. That's why here two bold letter sentences are given. Thus it is necessary that banks and cooperatives increase their lending particularly in the rural areas. In the rural areas, banks and cooperatives should lend more and more loans so that the rural people stop depending upon the informal sources of credit. If more and more banks, more and more cooperative societies are established in rural areas, when they provide more loans at a reasonable rate of interest to the rural people, then naturally the rural people they stop depending more on the informal credit sources in their areas. Secondly, while formal sector loans needed to expand, even formal sector loans also need to be expanded. I mean, we should give more and more loans. I mean, those banks, those cooperatives which are there in urban areas or throughout the country. So, formal sector loans also need to be expanded so that everyone should receive loans. So that the dependence on the informal sector loans will be reduced. Okay. Next, at present it is the richer households who receive formal credit. Rich people are receiving credit from formal sources, whereas the poor have to depend more on informal sources. It is important that formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. Next one. Coming to the next topic, that is self-help groups. SHG. Self-help groups. Okay, what is self-help groups? What are the functions of self-help groups? So you should remember this one, very very important. It will be asked in objectives and also in 5-mark questions. So self-help groups for the poor. Self-help groups for the poor people. So in the previous section just now, we have seen that poor households are still depending more on informal sector of loans. The poor people in India are depending mostly on informal sector of loans, and more in rural areas who are depending upon informal sector of loans. Why it is so? Why it is so means very simple, because the formal sector institutions are very less in India and they are giving limited loans. That's why people are not able to receive loans from formal sector. Banks are not present everywhere, you know. Banks are not present everywhere. Okay. I mean, banks are not provided everywhere in rural India. Usually, banks are very less in villages, rural areas. So, banks are not present everywhere in rural India. Even when they are present, what? Getting a loan from bank is very difficult. First reason is banks are not present everywhere, especially in rural areas, villages. Moreover, even though they are present, then it is very difficult for a person to take loans from informal sector, because that person has to go to the bank, he has to fill the application, he has to provide collateral, he has to do documentation, he has to agree the terms of credit. Then only the banks as a lender will agree to give loans to the person, needy person who is called borrower. So getting a loan from bank is not easy, because lot of processes we have to fulfill. Filling application, providing documents, collateral, terms of credit, surety, security, all these things you have to fulfill the conditions to the bank. Then only they'll give loans. That's why most of the people, they are approaching to take loans from informal sources. Because in informal sources, okay, this documentation, collateral, these things are not needed. The process will not take much time. If you take loans from banks, from formal sector, you have to follow the process. It is time taking. Whereas in informal sector, there is no need of any process, no need of collateral, documentation, this and that. You can get the loan immediately. That's why most of the people, they are approaching informal sector to get loans. But when they are approaching informal sector of loans, then they are facing a lot of trouble, because high rate of interest is charged. Sometimes it leads to them into debt trap. So in order to prevent such people, in order to prevent the poor people, in order to prevent the innocent rural people from what? These problems, a new method was devised in India, that is what? Self-help group system. The self-help group system is one of the new method, okay, a newer method, newer ways for providing loans to the poor apart from banks. The simple reason is, in order to prevent the rural people, in order to prevent the innocent poor people from the informal sector of credit, or the problems which are there in informal sector of credit, or from the high rate of interest in the informal sector of credit. So in order to protect these people, okay, in recent years people have tried with some new methods, new ways, and one of such new ways is what? That establishment of self-help groups, SHG. The idea is, why the self-help groups are started? The idea is to organize what? Rural poor. The idea is to organize rural poor, in particular women, into small self-help groups, that is SHG. The self-help groups generally are found in rural areas. These are meant for rural poor people, and the members of these self-help groups are mainly women. Okay. In one self-help group, there will be 15 to 20 women as the members. In one self-help group, 15 to 20 women members will be in that self-help group. These self-help groups, these 15 to 20 members, okay, usually belong to one neighborhood. they usually belongs to one neighborhood, one area, and these members, what they are doing, they are saving some small amounts, and that savings they have to pool into the group. Each member is supposed to pool their resource or money at least 25 rupees to 100 rupees. It's not a big amount. So all the 15 to 20 members in the self-help group, they need to pool their resources. They have to save some amount, and every member is supposed to pool minimum 24 rupees or maximum 100 rupees. So some amount will be collected by the self-help group. Now the self-help group, what it will do, that total amount which is collected from all the members, that amount they will give to their members only, at a low rate of interest, so that the women can do some productive work, some useful work. She can become economically independent. Okay, like that. So in this way, if the members who have taken loans from the self-help group, again they repaid the loans back to the self-help group. If this is taking place for 1-2 years, then what will happen in future? These self-help groups, they can use this total amount as collateral. They can use this amount as collateral, and they can take loans from the banks. Larger amounts, and that amount again will be equally distributed among all the members of the self-help group in order to start some small business, small scale industries, to make women economically independent, to run their houses easily, etc. And the rate of interest charged for these loans by the banks will be usually less. Here, every member who have taken loan, actually the group will take the loan, and the group will distribute the amount to all the members equally, and the group is responsible to repay the loan to the bank. Suppose if any member is not repaying the loan back to the self-help group, naturally the self-help group also unable to repay the loan back to the bank. In that case, all the remaining members are collectively responsible to repay the loan to the bank. Okay, so what is the full form of SHG? Self-help groups. Why self-help groups are started? In order to protect the poor people, the rural people, from what? Informal source of credit, from debt trap. So this is one of the new method. The total members of the self-help group will be around 15 to 20. Usually all members are from the same neighborhood. Initially these members will pool some amount in that group. The amount ranges from 25 rupees to 100 rupees. The total amount they will lend in the form of loan to the needy members for their purposes, for their economic works. If this same trend is continued for 2-3 years, then in the coming years the total amount will be used as a collateral by the self-help group and take a loan from the bank, a larger amount. That amount again redistributed among all the members, and all the members are equally responsible to repay the loan back to the bank. If any person is not repaying the amount, then all the members are collectively responsible to repay the loan to the bank. Usually the rate of interest charged by the banks to the self-help groups will be less. So in this way, nowadays we are preventing the rural people not to depend much on informal sector of credit. So nowadays throughout India you can find number of self-help groups, and the self-help groups makes the women economically independent to run small scale business, small scale industry, small businesses, etc. Now coming to our next topic, that is Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. Listen, this is one very important. It is asked in the examination twice, I have seen. So Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. First of all, you should know Bangladesh is our neighboring country, and the capital of Bangladesh is Dhaka. It's a neighboring country. So the experiment of Grameen Bank was very successful in our neighboring country Bangladesh. How it happened? What these Grameen banks are doing? Let us see. The Grameen Bank of Bangladesh is one of the biggest success stories in reaching the poor to meet their credit needs at reasonable rates. So, Grameen Bank experiment was made in Bangladesh, and these Grameen banks were very much successful in reaching the poor in providing credit at reasonable rates of interest. These Grameen banks were started in Bangladesh around 1970s as a small project. Okay, in 1970s it was started as a small project. Okay, Grameen Bank small project Grameen Bank in October 2004 has over 8.63 million members. I mean, by the year 2014, October 2014, over 8.6 million members in about 81,390 villages spread across Bangladesh. So these many Grameen banks are there, and these many members are members of the Grameen banks. I repeat, Grameen Bank of Bangladesh is one of the biggest success stories in reaching the poor in providing credit at reasonable rates. Started in 1970s as a small project Grameen Bank in October 2014. If you see, it has over 8.63 million members in about 81,390 villages spread across Bangladesh. Almost all of the borrowers are women. In these Grameen banks, all borrowers who are taking loans are mostly women. The borrowers from these Grameen banks are mostly women and belong to poorest sections of the society. These borrowers have proved that not only are poor women reliable borrowers, but also they can start and run a variety of small income generating activities successfully. So those who are taking the loans from these Grameen banks are mostly women, and these women, by taking loans, they are starting small economic work, small businesses to become economically reliable, independent, so that they can run their houses comfortably, easily. So the success story of Grameen Bank is seen in Bangladesh, which was initially started as a small project in 1970s. And I told you how many members are there, 8.63 millions. It covered how many villages? 390 villages it is covered. So it is very success story there. So students, in this way this lesson is over. Now next we will start another chapter, that is chapter 4, that is the the globalization and the Indian economy. This is chapter 4, the last chapter of economics. I will start this chapter. Okay, so I suggest all my students to read the textbook once about money and credit, and I will send the notes of the same chapter, money and credit. Okay students, thank you.